So much to talk about in the news this week. I'm here with Josh. Dave is here, and Dr. Mike. Welcome back to the KrakCast News. Let's jump right into it, guys. This is a follow-up on something we talked about. Was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week.
Your T-shirt very distracting today, John. I mean, your T-shirts are always distracting, but is Nashville Pussy an album?
It's a band.
It's a band.
A really good band. I saw in Warsaw a couple of months ago. Yeah, Nashville Pussy. That's our first subject here on the KrakCast News.
Is it by any chance a hard rock band?
It's a rockabilly, rock-ish band. Josh, how would you describe?
They're kind of like straight down the road rock and roll, I'd say. Not kind of hard rock.
Really good. Nashville Pussy people, check it out.
Every time I come into this room, it's an education.
It is. For me too. Where was I? I have no idea.
Like a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about something.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago we were talking about the Cracovia crime boss that didn't really fit the standard profile?
Kralka, was it?
Yes, it is.
Don't remember her name.
Doesn't really fit the standard profile of a mafia crime boss, but she's still wanted. The cops are looking for her all over the continent, a European-wide search warrant. But Dr. Mike, we learned this week that maybe she's trying to negotiate a surrender, but she has some demands.
Yeah, she's asking for something called list zalazny, which, I mean, English translates like legally as letter of safe conduct. That basically means she wants to, come to Poland or come to the courts here. But what she's requesting through an attorney here is not to be sent to jail until whatever investigation, whatever court proceedings are meant to happen, and she's actually given a final verdict and sentence.
Like to be on bail, basically.
Basically
to be
on bail without having to pay for it.
So she'll have to name names.
And well, who knows? But she's basically saying that she's a little worried for her safety. That if she goes to jail, maybe
I'm not comfortable calling her a rat. We're gonna have to come up with a more elegant animal, a fox, perhaps.
She's worried that she might end up, committing suicide here or something in jail. She's also mentioned the fact that her
suicide in quotation marks.
Exactly.
Hold on. She's implying that Polish prisons aren't safe after certain recent scandals where
it happened here before that, like people who knew things apparently died in prison or, choked themselves to death when they were on suicide watch, Epstein style. And she's also pointed out the fact that her brother-in-law, while being arrested by the police a couple of years ago, was shot in the back. She also pointed out the fact that her sister-in-law, who has a 2 or 3-year-old child, was also taken to jail, taken away from the child. So she's basically saying that she doesn't trust the police here, and she fears for her life if she does come here, and that's the main reason she hasn't given herself up yet.
And how is she delivering this message if she hasn't given herself up? Some kind of
she's sending through a lawyer who has power of attorney. Apparently, she asked for this back in December when there was just a Polish-wide warrant for her arrest, and the courts said no. And now that there's the European-wide arrest warrant, she's asked for this protection again. It will probably take a month or so before the courts decide either way.
Okay, none of us here are lawyers, I think.
Lawyers?
What did I say?
I just like to hear you say stuff.
Lawyers. Advocat. Anyway, none of us here are in the legal profession, I'll say. Does these sound like reasonable demands, or is this crazy talk?
If she's gonna, give up some big players, that sounds like what's being floated here, Mike.
Because it basically sounds like
the big player thing.
She is a big player, and it basically sounds like I'll turn myself in if nothing happens to me. That's what it sounds like.
Wasn't her modus operandi the money collection side of things, which would make her a very powerful witness?
She was the one, basically running the show for a couple of years after her partner was taken out of the picture. Bringing in cocaine and marijuana worth millions.
I'm just gonna say this is 10-part Netflix series written all over it.
Oh yeah,
this is like Weeds, but better. Yeah.
Robert Piankiewicz starring as.
So, Dr. Mike, let's say you are a really hot hooligan underground crime boss on the run from the cops. Would you turn yourself in, or would you take your chances out on the street and see what happens?
I mean, if I was really hot, I'd be afraid to go to prison, especially as a guy. I mean, you know what happens in prison.
Soap on a rope.
Exactly.
Thanks for the visual, Josh. Yes.
So you don't drop it.
Is she gonna turn herself in, or is she gonna get caught before she gets a chance to?
You know what? There are so many stories like this of people getting caught before it happens, but she's already been being chased now for like the last 8 or 9 months, and they still haven't been able to get their hands on her. And I'm pretty sure they want to get her hands on her.
It never ends.
Come on, always with the bad jokes. And, we can say that she seems to be a pretty exceptional criminal, staying on the
pretty criminal, yeah.
Pretty good at her job. I think we should
exceptionally pretty criminal. I think you meant
using gender stereotypes to reduce her abilities as a criminal, John. Okay,
because women are never good at stealing money from people.
The people who are helping her. There must be
can't be easy.
There must be a pretty long list of people helping her, some to hide, getting money to her, whatever.
She couldn't do it on her own. She's a woman, John.
No, it's not what I mean.
Wouldn't it be funny if she's actually just just in Kazimierz on Soroka Street, like next door to the police station.
If you hid it well enough from the cops to last for this long, you've got help, and those people are accomplices. And so, somebody's going to turn her in sooner or later. Somebody's going to get nervous about getting caught themselves. I don't know. We'll see. But these people usually, sooner or later, sometimes much later, they do get caught. So I don't know.
And we didn't mention this case just for the clickbaitiness of it. Just
not at all. Absolutely not at all. Well, staying with local news.
It's interesting. I mean, it is news. I mean, she's a major crime figure, and she's on the run. If a man was on the run, it would still be interesting.
Staying with local news, last week, September 1st, the new laws came into effect regulating what you can and cannot burn in your furnace for heating purposes. What is it now? All solid materials banned?
Didn't we say a year ago nearly that this is what they should do? I mean, crack down in a way that is high media, lots of optics, the drones, they should get pieces done on TVN about that, TVP, get everyone excited about enforcing these laws. And then, reality might tip over if you also offer enough incentives to switch over to cleaner fuels, I guess.
There was quite an interesting statistic, I thought, which was like something like, 5-6 years ago, there was reckoned to be about 185,000 solid fuel burning furnaces.
No, 5-6 years ago, about in the 90s. By the time they brought in these, let's cut back, it was already down to 20-some thousand. So it was basically.
And now we're down to about 4,000.
Yeah,
now.
And the smog levels were going up, even though at the same time the number of these furnaces were going down.
Explain that.
Details.
Okay.
I go back to, I mentioned that a long time ago, these mini incinerators that they're playing around with, which instead of burning trash, in your chimney, you can just throw any old stuff that doesn't recycle easily, whatever, into this washing machine size unit, and it'll just grind it into a carbon-like dust, which can just literally be washed safely into the sewage system.
I mean, this happens with most of the stuff we recycle here in Krakow. Part of it gets sorted out, but it's like 5-10%. The rest gets stored for a year. They realize they can't sell it and just goes to the incinerators here in Krakow.
At the risk of sparking a 45-minute conversation here, but the obsession with recycling leads to a blindness about even more practical solutions. It annoys me.
Apparently, Dr. Mike, after the new rules came into effect, it was just a matter of hours before the police were getting calls from people reporting their neighbors. What's going on there?
This is something that really shocking, because in Poland there's always been like this negative stance towards tattletales. Like, ever since like communist era, people, even when they saw a crime being committed, they wouldn't go report it. Not because they didn't like the crime or not, but just they didn't want to go,
nice crime.
Basically, it's like, Dona Shishelstwo. That was something that was really looked down on, where, you go to the authorities and say that somebody else is doing something bad. And this is a huge cultural shift in Poland now, where within like 3 or 4 minutes, somebody called the police or the Straż Miejska and said, like, yeah, there's some smoke coming out of the building next to me. I'm guessing this was more like neighbors that didn't like each other and just gave an excuse. But
it's a great tool to troll your neighbors with, isn't it?
But apparently,
well, you know what? It's everybody's business. I mean, I'm sorry, but the air we breathe is literally one of the things we all share. And, it's been going on long enough. Just don't burn your fucking trash, people.
Yeah, the problem is, like, because people burn...
Or your spare wood. Did you see the guy who got fined and he said to the media, he was like, yeah, well, I had a big spare piece of veneer here that I didn't need, so I burnt it.
What else was I supposed to do?
What else could I possibly have done? It inconvenienced me very slightly, so I had a 12-hour fire with it.
Well, the problem here is, like, all the people burning the inappropriate things in their and their trash have ruined it for everybody else who was fine with just, like, clean coal, filtered, scrubbed, or, wood fires in just like places for decorative purposes.
The KrakCast has no idea how long that fire lasted. I don't know why he said 12 hours.
Made that up.
Just made that shit right up.
When I saw the story, the first thing I was thinking was...
career in Sky News beckons.
First thing I was thinking was, who the hell was burning anything last week?
Annoying you, is he?
Was it really that cold last week that people had to start their furnaces? What the hell was going on?
Like 20 degrees at night. I remember when I heard that they were going to bring in the ban on the 1st of September. Like, that sucks, because I actually wanted to go to my parents' house and use that fireplace one more time. But now when it's 30 degrees outside, we only use it during like Christmas and one time during the coldest parts of winter, and that's it. But who the hell wanted to burn a fire? Yeah.
We talked about this last time. I don't remember the numbers involved, but aren't we down to like basically the people who either outright refuse to replace the systems or the ownership situation is unclear? We're down to the hard cases.
It's a few thousand, and then most of them are just technicalities.
The reason I brought up that kind of cabinet maker guy who was fined is that I wanted to make the point that right in the centre of this city, there are still massive amounts of little industrial estates with workshops that all have furnaces that do this type of thing. And we're not even close to solving this problem. Yeah, it is better than it was in the 80s. It's not, saying that the smog levels in this city aren't incredibly dangerous and incredibly corrosive. John, I know you yourself, like me, have invested in ridiculous technology to clean the air in our apartments. That's how much it freaks us out because we have kids. It's fucking...
And that reminds me, I got to go down to the basement and break that thing out in a couple of weeks because it's almost time.
Yeah. I mean, but you can't deny that these levels of PM, whatever. Josh, can you clear up the PMness?
Well, that's actually
particulate
size.
matter.
It's like the worst one is the 2.5, basically that's small enough to when it can actually go through most filters and masks. You breathe it in and it just doesn't, it's not that it clogs up your lung, it actually goes into your bloodstream.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because the problem with like larger particulate matter that you get from coal and stuff like that, it can build up a level inside your lungs that's very harmful, but generally you can cough it up. Mm-hmm. So unless you really are breathing it in nonstop, if you just breathe it in for half an hour, then cough it up, you're generally fine. Both the PM5 and 2.5, that you breathe it in, it stays in your system. That's the stuff that can cause heart problems, liver problems, etc.
Insulate your home, invest a couple of grand in a decent heating system that runs on clean gas, and come on, people, stop burning things. Everybody likes a fire, okay? But we don't live, back in 1800 squat when, we needed fires. They're just something we like to look at, so we have to give them up.
More local news. Interesting story this week. Kind of a sad story, but a happy ending, I suppose, for now. A baby was born 56 days after the death of its mother. Dr. Mike, what's going on here?
The exact details of the mother's passing were not discussed, but we can infer that it was basically a stroke or some kind of aneurysm that caused brain death within a short period of time. Like she was hospitalized, but they realized she's gone. But she was pregnant then at about 21 weeks. And the whole question was, can we keep the mother quote unquote alive long enough for the gestation to go further along to allow this, viability, survivability of the child, the daughter. And they were able to keep the woman, bodily functions going for the next 56 days. So until the child was at about, I think, like 29, 30 weeks, which is, still 2 months premature, but that's at a moment where they were able to perform a cesarean section, kept the child, in an incubator, and the baby survived.
Do we know what hospital?
I think it was in the article. I'm sorry. It's
incredible job to the staff of that hospital. I mean,
a really terrific story, I think.
It is. I mean, it's sad, but in a way uplifting. But you have to realize the effort they have to put in because they're basically keeping somebody who's dead alive. So all their effort they're putting into this woman, they know it's not going to come to anything.
Let me ask this, then, that you mentioned that. Given modern medicine, is this maybe not routine, that's not the word, but it's certainly within the realm of possibilities, or is this like miracle territory?
This is kind of in that in-between area because when a pregnant woman dies, the chances, of this medical attention coming to her in time to keep her, quote unquote, on life support is unlikely. Usually, they die, and if it isn't at a point where the baby can be removed right away by C-section, then the baby dies as well. So everything has to align perfectly for this person to die in the hospital or in a scenario that they know that's going to happen, and that the pregnancy is far along enough for them to be able to keep it going.
I'm going to give that a miracle.
It is a miracle. And there was even actually just recently at the same time, though, there was one in Czechia where I think they kept the woman alive for over 112 or 13 days. And this is like the new record. And she was only at 15 weeks at that point. A lot of people women don't even know that they're pregnant at 15 weeks.
Not to bring any levity to this subject at all, because it's an incredible story. Heart goes out to the family of the mother, but isn't just show you how much something has to happen for a good news story to get into the media. I mean,
yeah.
Like it has to be something this amazing, for it to cross over into our usual moan cycle. There's a lot of amazing things happen in the world every day. I wish we heard more about stuff like that.
They don't mention, like, I was surprised as well the other night when this was actually on the news on TV. It's like, wow, you guys actually stepped away from bitching about politics.
Surely it's as worthy a mention, when a team of people, a medical team, keep a person alive under the absolute odds, totally against them. Can't speak properly. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Sorry about that. But you know what I mean.
Well done to the medical staff. I mean, it is amazing. And fingers crossed for the baby. A tough start in life, but let's hope somebody else in the family is stepping forward.
That's kind of terrific for the family, actually. Yeah. I mean, you have the kind of like the bereavement, obviously, of losing a loved one. But then there is, implausibly a kind of a consolation there, generation.
Well, again, staying local. Oh, no episode of the KrakCast News is complete without some story about public transport. It's kind of our obsession around here. And
Your
Can I
obsession.
actually say
Yeah,
something
what?
totally off the cuff, like interrupt you about public transport? Yet again, I was on a tram today. Don't worry, I had my ticket, MPK. I had my ticket. But I noticed some people trying to use these dummy credit card stubs on the ticket machines that are actually on the trams. You know, traditionally you had to pay, if you want to pay credit card, you had to do it at the stop, yeah?
Yeah.
The 50 and many other trams have coin-operated ticket machines that have a really confusing, what looks like a tap stub for a card.
Isn't it? No?
Just watch, if you ever see one of these ticket machines on a 50 or one of the more modern trams, just stand near it and just watch the confusion this causes. It's absolutely priceless.
But what is it?
I think maybe that they're going to, I don't know, upgrade the software so it will be able to interact, and maybe they just get the hardware's ahead of the software, but it's extraordinary to see.
I'm just surprised, like with MPK, which keeps on saying how futuristic and forward-looking they are, they still haven't introduced like, a tap-to-pay system like you have in London, like you have in freaking Lisbon, Portugal, and Australia. A lot
You
of
mean for a regular users? Like
just buy an Oyster, an Opal, something like that, and or you can now just use a credit card like to tap on and tap off.
Here's the thing: you don't need to tap. You buy your card, you load it up. You don't need to tap. It's only if an inspector stops you, he just scans your card. So I don't really see where the tap comes into play. You just get onto a tram.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, how these
In an
cards...
Oyster station, you have to walk into a station and tap at a turnstile. You don't have to do that on Krakow's tram system. So your point.
No, but like
is
in a
huge.
lot of countries on buses and stuff like that, it's actually on the bus when you get on, and then they scan you if
Yeah,
you're
but
on
it's
the...
not in Poland. You just get on the bus, and the only time you ever have to show your ticket is if a ticket inspector asks you.
Yes, but I'm saying, like, why go through the bother of getting a ticket and stuff like that if you just have a credit card?
Okay,
and
you
like,
two, I got to step in here.
A credit card in London works like as an Oyster. You don't have to set up or anything like that. You just use that same card, and it counts as your Oyster. So if you use it for several days in a row, you
Everybody
get.
listening is lost now, Dr. Mike. Nobody was
Let's
lost in
move
the
along now. I just interrupted his
like to
interruption.
clarify that you can get a card.
Why don't we
that
get
does
the
all of
system
in
that they had
Krakow.
in
Yeah,
the
but you can't just use your regular
Oh
card.
God! Will you two shut up? The system in the Ukraine, at least this is the system they had when I was there, where there's literally a person on the bus or the tram that goes from person to person and collects money in cash. You pay in cash. You pay to the person.
Oh, you
So-
mean like a conductor?
something like that? Yeah,
what
and
it
it
is.
was like that. There's no no little buying your ticket ahead of time. You get on the tram. Somebody comes up to you and says, "Okay, it's going to be this much money," and you buy it from them. It was great.
When I was on the
Let's do
tram
that.
today with Charlie, a ticket inspector got on, and he was like John Rambo of ticket inspectors. He barreled up to this dude who was playing what I call the slow fade scam. He was pretending to be at the change.
I've been there many times.
Yeah, but for some, they have a way of knowing like that you've been on the tram.
Sorry, was it the uniformed ticket inspector or the secret
No, he
ones?
had like a badass kind of suede jacket and a stubble, and he looked like he'd just been on a bender, and now he's going to kick some ass on the railways of Krakow. And he kind of it was this older
First
Polish
blood.
guy in his 50s with glasses, and I thought he was going to let him off, but he just kind of hauled him off.
I
Like,
see a lot of the uniformed ones. Anyway, well, the story we're talking about here eventually,
yeah,
I
it was a
think,
story.
yeah, exactly, is based on money and ticket buying. Impeka, Dr. Mike had a bit of an odd choice for an advertising theme this week.
Yes, exactly. It's like if you turn on the radio now, public radio, it's basically a woman talking about her conversation on a tram with her colleague, and he's basically, the colleague is complaining about like, oh, I hate taking the car, and she's like, well, it's now you can just for 69 zlotys get your monthly ticket and use this tram or bus system. And he's like, 69 zlotys? Yeah, 69 zlotys. Well, how do I go about this 69? And the way they phrase it in Polish is basically kind of suggestive of the sexual position 69.
really?
Yes. And
I wasn't sure where you were going with this.
Really? I mean,
well, the whole thing is like you're surprised to be listening.
Well, what's the how do they phrase it in Polish exactly?
mutual oral sex, I believe.
Jak się robi 69 or something?
Jak to się robi to 69? It's like, how do you do this 69? And it's like, and like the woman then reacts like, oh, the 69 zlotys, you just go on the website.
All right, let's go around the room. Who believes that this is purely innocent and accidental?
Who cares?
Anybody?
They basically just want people like us to talk about
Do
it.
you know what? They're going for a little bit of humor, and maybe they didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, MPK though. Okay, maybe for some other kind of business, but MPK, the government-run transport system.
Dare you have a sense of humor, government?
Sorry, guys, I'm not familiar with this sexual position that you're talking about.
Why am I not surprised?
Google it. Actually,
But not right now. Actually, why not right now?
Actually, I'll Google it right now. See what comes up. I don't have much.
Put his
hope.
magic Google finger on him.
Let's see images.
Please move on, John,
and,
before the jokes keep coming.
What the hell is that? Look at that. That's what comes up for 69.
All right. Have you got all your
Is it
filters
some performer or something?
disabled?
I don't think Google returns.
Isn't
the
that
kind of
your
images
work
we have in
laptop?
mind.
Maybe that's why.
Well, anyway, so
You're the host of this shit. You're supposed to keep us on track, John.
oh
or
yeah,
get your head
good
in the
fucking
game
luck
here.
with that.
Yeah.
What about any
ninth
pushback, Dr.
something.
Mike? People are, people will recognize kind of the double entendre. They don't. Some people are amused, some people are not.
This has been only 2 or 3 days. It came up on their Facebook page, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday night. I heard it on the radio on Friday the other day. So if there's going to be any pushback, I expect it next week or something like that, where some conservative prudes or some feminist group will say, "How dare you talk about such things in public?" And
I want us to keep an eye on the ticket collection sales in the city since they put the prices up. What do you call that with tax collection? The Laffer curve, when the higher you raise income tax, so there's a point
we
where
mentioned this last
there's
week.
a point where the take drops off. I know that the take dropped off this quarter, but we got to keep an eye on that. We got to see if it's just too much for people. Because what I always just noticed today is how many people buy the 460 ticket, the 40-minute ticket. I've always been able to get away with the 20-minute ticket with the journeys I take. 460 is a bit of a hit if you're doing it both ways every day.
It's too much. What we said before, the 20-minute ticket, what was it, 280? That was
Used to be
perfect. That was
280,
the
now
sweet
it's
spot. That was
340.
perfect.
And I wonder, have we found this fascinating economic, model?
I think we have. Psychologically, it just feels like so much more.
We have to keep our eye on the data, John.
Going back to the 69, so to speak.
Sorry, but if you're spending 460 twice a day for, say, 20 days, working days a month, then that's, 88 something's a month, so a 69 would be advantageous.
Well,
69 is always
Do
advantageous.
the 69. But if it was really part of a clever marketing campaign, wouldn't you expect it to be a little more
Let's be clear, 69
broad?
is very good value for what that car
Of course it
gives
is.
you.
But I mean, I want to see
card,
tram drivers.
by the
I want to
way.
see tram and bus drivers wearing like a 69 button. I want to see posters that say, do the 69 with us, something like that.
What's your position on the 69 ticket?
Because it was confined to radio, it seems, if it was on purpose, it seems like
This
kind
is
of a waste.
confined to radio, and you're wearing a massive pink tongue with Nashville pussy on the front of it.
You're aware we are a audio-only program, Dave. This is
Yeah,
not,
I know we are.
I think our audience are heartily grateful of that fact.
Visual,
This
of
is not
kind of
YouTube.
visual terrorism I have to put up with on a weekly basis from the center of your chest.
terrorism.
No cameras.
Visual terrorism. Okay, fine. Staying local. Local news, that is. We're going to return to something we talked about almost exactly a year ago, just over a year ago, in fact. There was a murder at the time. We said it was a murder. A murder in the Planty, right in front of Collegium Novum, kind of across the street from where Ulica Pilsudskiego starts. Body was found in the early hours of the morning with multiple stab wounds and a knife sticking out of his chest. And at the time, the police said that we cannot exclude suicide as an explanation for this. We were laughing about it because, well, there was a guy with a knife sticking out of his chest. Well,
multiple stab wounds. Also,
here we are a year later, and the prosecutor is closing the case, saying that the conclusion they have come to is that it was suicide.
They basically said that they could not show any evidence that suggested that third parties were involved.
So it was suicide by default?
Basically, yeah.
All right, Dr. Mike, as a doctor, how do you stab yourself 6 or 7 times? Like seriously enough to die?
And why isn't it the medical examiner at the time of the murder making this decision anyway?
Well, this always takes time because apparently he had several wounds, and finally the last wound, went straight in. They checked for fingerprints on the knife, the angle, everything seemed to suggest that these were self-inflicted wounds. It's got to take a lot of mental effort and willpower to stab yourself just once. But
You have to be a
several
little
times,
psycho, I guess,
and,
don't you?
through the chest. That's not easy. Try to force yourself to give yourself a paper
why would
cut.
you specifically end your life in a way that makes it exactly look like a murder? It's a very strange thing to me psychologically. I do not believe this
They
was
didn't go
suicide.
into this. I mean, I'll be honest as well. Like I'm not.
So it's a murder.
From the details that have gone public, I wouldn't rule out murder as well. The thing is, if they can't find any sign that third parties were involved, then they can't go forward with this. They
Yeah,
apparently.
it's mens rea, isn't it? I mean,
They went for, they interviewed family members and friends. They went through his house and
Yeah,
everything.
but let me throw one at you, right? Every year across every city in Europe, young adults, people just go out one night and never come home, and their families know that person would never just disappear. Where do they go? Stuff happens. That's all I'm saying.
Dr. Mike, how deep would a blade have to go
Murder.
into your chest to make it a fatal wound?
if you get the angle right, it's only about 2 or so inches. If you get it
5 centimeters, basically.
Yeah, if you get it right between, the ribs near the sternum, you hit a major blood vessel or anything around the heart, you can bleed out very quickly. Or what happens actually is the perinatal cavity around your heart, it fills up with blood, and then your heart can't pump, you can't breathe, and you kind of suffocate and die. There's a couple of ways that
we get a lot of fucking mileage out of you being a doctor.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways that getting a knife in the right place in your chest will kill you without necessarily actually just cutting through your heart or anything like that. But it doesn't have to go into.
To get over the self-preservation instinct, the voice that says don't stab yourself. Do you have to be on some kind of drugs or kind of out of your mind?
Yeah, they didn't rule out. They didn't say.
Hold on, they surely have done a toxicology report. Surely, if he was,
I'm assuming they did, but they didn't mention that if they found or did not find anything. But if you're like in a state of psychosis or something like that. The thing, what was surprising was he's apparently tried to stab himself several times until he finally, got the right angle. I don't know if he fell down.
A history of stabbing himself?
The information was not given out. So this is why, this is such a strange story, because it just seems like such a odd way to kill yourself.
If a journalist who knows anything about this could contact us, we'd love to hear from him.
They found him in a tracksuit or something like that, looking like a runner.
The place is weird too. Do it at home. Why go? Yeah, he's in running clothes, early morning hours in the Planty. It just seems all of it's weird, very, very weird. But again, a year ago we're laughing at the idea of suicide, and here we are now, and apparently it was a suicide, or
it was a murder.
So they say. That's what they want you to believe, huh? All right, we'll see. Last local story, kind of two things combined. The bridge that goes over Ditla at Hala Targowa. If you live here in Krakow, you know what we're talking about. Just a couple of days ago, as part of the huge construction renovation process that we'll talk about in just a second, they're digging around and they found, was it 4 or 5 enormous bombs
100
from
kilos
World
each,
War II. Mike, just around the corner from where you live.
Yeah, it's on the corner apparently of Lech and Kopernika, so near the hospitals there as well. I think the what's it called? Kidney dialysis building is right there. They found some bombs. At first I heard aerial bombs. I don't think there were any aerial attacks.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, there wasn't even any bombing raids on Krakow.
But what I assumed, because
I was assuming they were just badly stored.
That's what it most likely was, because these were bombs, and they think there was a depot there or something. They left bombs behind because, if there is a raid, I can believe that 1 or 2 bombs would go off, but 4 bombs right next to each other. Yeah, they were just being stored there.
That actually kind of makes it the more dangerous, doesn't it? If they've been undisturbed all this time, they're more likely to be in the kind of condition that
perfect condition, not duds. Because if it fell from the sky and then it go up, then probably a dud and it won't happen. But if these are just being stored, it's got rusted over 75 years. You have to be a little nervous around it.
You're doing local news when the odd time you get an unexploded World War II bomb story, don't you? It makes me feel like a real trench coat local news journalist. This one, I have to say,
it makes you wonder how many others are out there too, doesn't it?
And, in the center of Krakow, this is not something that you would expect, like out in certain forested areas, where you actually had the front of the war, World War I, World War II battles. You can expect that kind of thing, but instead of Krakow, which was not a part of the country that saw major battles, it's surprising. But it turns out this is probably a depot. But there are a lot of people asking, will they find more bombs and stuff like that from that era as they dig out this?
But, even if it was a depot, look, even if it was a depot, obviously at some point it was buried in dirt. How do you miss that when you're kind of reinforcing the rail mound that used to be there until recently? Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But how do you miss that? Even if it's a depot, it just gets buried under dirt and nobody notices?
We're blaming communism on this one.
I also remember, this is from World War II. So the Nazis, the Germans, put these depots. They in this mound. I know they had to evacuate. They took most of them, but they forgot about this one.
So it was like a dog hiding a bone, basically, just like
something
that.
Along those lines.
Are we blaming the Nazis then? We blame the Nazis. They
were goddamn Jerry's.
It was definitely one of them.
So the experts come out, the bomb squad, whatever you call them, and they do what they do, and hours later everything's back to normal. Yeah,
defuse the situation.
I was actually at work. I opened up my window just after I heard this on news. Am I going to hear a big boom or not?
I wish Mythbusters would do an episode on how likely it is to find a bomb from the Second World War that has any possibility of exploding at all. Because
it still happens in London.
Yeah, but they don't explode. They never explode. It's always in the news all the time.
Yeah, farmers find them in the
A
fields.
bomb
and
that could reduce, City Hall to rubble was found today. Yeah, found.
Well, I
and
think,
saved in the
it's
fields.
kind of old technology, so defusing them is relatively straightforward. It's not like in your kind of, Mission Impossible or something where there's little, red LED
Yeah, but
tickers.
does the mechanism or the substance involve decay over time?
Exactly. Is any bomb from that era that's been underground for 8 years, is it still viable in any way, shape, or
The
form?
explosive material, I believe, still is. The question is the detonator still viable?
Well, I think, yes, that's exactly right. Because, a lot of explosive material, if it's not moving, is essentially inert. But if it is, if there's a detonator, then, that's a different story.
Let's put it this way, you still, if you hear that, like, underneath your building they found a bomb like that, you still want experts to take care of it.
I'm throwing this out to our listeners, the wonderful Marek, who's a great researcher, a great post-show researcher. He always puts up interesting stuff.
It tells us where we're wrong.
Has there ever been a case, and just prove me wrong, in recent history where one of these big bombs actually exploded undisturbed out of nowhere and killed a lot of people? I've never heard of that.
I think I've heard of stories like this here in Poland in the 90s, but I can't swear by it. It just in the back of my head, I know I've heard these stories before.
I think we can do better than that.
I didn't think about checking this out.
Well, staying in the same part of the city, literally 50 or 60 meters south of where the bombs were found, the rail bridge that goes over Dietla that I mentioned, it's in the very last stages of what's supposed to be a huge renovation that's taking place. New rail lines. They've cleared the land that was under the rail tracks. They opened it up. Everything, behind part of Dietla, behind part of Starowiecina, there's huge tracts of open land that used to be this earth mound.
I wouldn't say they're huge.
Consider it's the center of town.
It's a lot of
I would say it's visually arresting after having lived in here.
And it's just now opening up. Now they're carting away tons of earth every day, and it's going to be finished pretty soon, I think. But the bridge itself, apparently, now that they have a good look at it, there's talk that maybe it can't support the weight of the trains. It's not kind of fit for purpose now, and we're looking at the possibility of destroying it and replacing it with a modern bridge. Again, after 95% of the renovation project is already done, now we learn that maybe it's not ready for the future.
This is a 19th century structure, and it's actually on that list of
1860s, I think it was.
That's 19th century, and it's actually a protected landmark.
Correct anymore, Tom. So sensitive.
So sensitive.
You hurt my feelings. I feel
Just
triggered.
clarifying the decade, Mike. All right.
And it's actually on a protected list. And what happened is they decided to put 2 new rail lines there, and they increased the width of the bridge by building up a second bridge in the exact same design. But at this point, like you said, they realized, or they're claiming that the superstructure of this, in underneath, is just not safe to be continued use, and the expense of actually reinforcing it makes no sense. We need to tear it down and build, a replacement. And the city's actually basically said, no, you can't do that. It takes 2 years just to get through the legal work, because you have to take something off the protected list before you can demolish it. So this is going to be now a nightmare for the construction, all the work that's going along now. They're saying this is at least going to put on another year for something that was supposed to end
something that's almost done, basically. Yeah. You got to question. I'm not in a position to question the engineers, but you have to question the engineers. They didn't, they don't do their magical calculations, and they're not sure that everything's going to be okay when it's done before they get to this point.
There's still trains going over this, by the way, for decades now. But apparently, when they finally dug up all this earth and they're seeing it from different angles, they're saying I think it's technically still safe, but it's just not up to snuff with current standards. And they're saying no, this is probably not a good idea. And the city bureau that is involved with protecting landmarks is really annoyed with them. Just something else, actually, the city decided now is that they want to put Aleja Trzech Wieżców, the big road in the middle. Yeah, as a protected historical landmark.
Yeah, as beautiful as it is.
Yeah, it's 3 kilometers of traffic. I mean, I understand the idea, but I just know that once they do this, that means there's not going to be any renovation or improvement on those.
They wanted to put a tram line over there in the median between the lanes, traffic lanes.
I can understand that, but they're not going to do that now because, you have to take out the trees.
They should do that.
It's a perfect location for it, especially if they want to cut down on traffic. Get rid of that as a thoroughfare, as an artery.
So annoying, that wrong.
Coming back to the bridge, The side of the bridge, and its status as a historical artifact, which makes it complicated to do anything to it. But the side that faces Rondo Grzegorzycka has been covered with cement. It's gone. You can't see the old face anymore.
No, that's actually the new face. That's the new part. They just build a new part.
That's what I'm saying. You can't see the old part of the original bridge. On that side of it, it's gone, and it's gone forever, presumably, right?
No, and it's been like that for so long now.
So you were really only dealing with what the other side that faces the southwest, I guess, that faces the Dietla side.
It's a good example.
Would it really be a big loss at this point?
I have to say it's a good example of conservatorship gone too far. They made the decision that bridge, that whole line needed to be upgraded. We've already talked about the advantages a modern span bridge gives, that we're going to get all this space back underneath all the way down to the river. And I think we just, like you say, John, they should have just sacrificed it from the start and just built it properly.
Let me throw this conspiracy theory out there. Do you think maybe the only reason they got the go-ahead, the green light for the whole project, was that they assured the city that they would be able to preserve that bridge?
I know, but who cares? Krakow is got more historical landmarks you can shake a stick at. It also is a modern, vibrant industrial hub and it needs good transport in and out of it, and they should have just said, you know what, as you say, John, from one side it's a completely new bridge anyway, and it's taken years because of the intricacies of building a bridge over a bridge, and it's been a total cluster. I promise I'd stop swearing so much.
There's a potential innovation, isn't there, for tourists? You take them on a walking stick shaking tour. And here's a building, shake a stick at it, and then move on to the next one. And anyway, John, quickly come in with the next item of news because I'm
to cover you. Okay, yeah, we'll do.
Dying.
We're going to go national here.
Make it stop.
After lots of local news, we're going to go national here with a few stories. First of all, Grzegorz, I think that's his name. Is it Grzegorz Schetyna?
Schetyna.
Yeah,
the guy I hadn't heard of until last week.
Schetyna. We can never agree on the pronunciation of his name.
Please tell me
Grzegorz Schetyna.
His horrifically remodeled teeth are leaving politics.
He's been the face of the of PO and kind of the United Left,
the teeth of PO,
the opposition to peace. They try to present themselves
for some time now, and he is formally out to be replaced by a young lady, Dr. Mike.
Yes, Mrs. Malgorzata Kidawa-Błońska, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
She used to be one of the Marszałek Sejm, so like the Speaker of the House back in the day. She is more or less known as a political. I wouldn't call her popular, but she's known in the right circles. Let's put it that way. And Schetyna, who wasn't a very popular politician, and in PO was considered more of a centrist rightist, rights winger. I wouldn't call him right winger, but more on that part of the spectrum. Wasn't very popular, personality wise, politically speaking. But I think this is a genius move because now they're presenting Małgosia, or Gośka as they like during the presentation calling her, as their candidate for prime minister. What I think is a genius move because when they fail, first of all, she still gets some credit. Second of all, he won't be shown as being a loser.
She will.
Yeah, she will. But the thing is, she came from nowhere. So
wait a second, Dave. If you had to guess, would you say that Schetyna jumped or was he pushed?
Oh, he's pushed 100%. I mean, come on.
But I don't think he gave him much opposition either. I think he kind of was glad to give up that stress there.
I think it's been a disaster. I'm sure he's a nice dude, but he needed to step aside. And
but you have to remember, PO, just like peace, is very divided, and Schetyna is one side, the more center right one. Then you have all of Tusk friends, like Kopat and stuff, which are a little more left leaning. And
there's no point in having a leader you all agree on and getting nowhere in the polls. You're going to have to take a leader that's more divisive.
The thing is, he's still the leader of the party. He's still the leader of the party. This is just introduced her as their candidate for the party.
Yeah, but we're talking about her, though. What does she get out of this? They're going to lose in October. They are going to lose for sure. It's just a matter of by what margin. What does she get by stepping forward and being branded as a loser in her first big national stage?
She gets a little bit of attention, a little bit of the limelight. She's still going to win a position in Parliament anyway, so they can form a shadow cabinet or something like that, which doesn't really exist in Polish politics, but it still sounds good.
So it's about expanding her national profile.
Exactly. They're looking, for once they're kind of, I think, playing the long game here, trying to get more names, more personalities out there, because a lot of people, when they think political parties in Poland, besides Kaczynski or Tusk, they don't really know anybody.
Yeah, true. Well, we'll see what the margin is when they lose the elections last month. But maybe, like we say, maybe this is a stepping stone towards the next round of elections for her. And maybe kind of a chance for the left to rebrand itself.
Something could happen between now and then.
You never know.
Events, dear boy.
Still, national news and more politicians. Last week there was a conference in Krynica, kind of an economic forum where the important people get together to talk about important stuff.
Poor man's Davos, as I like to call it.
Davos. And,
Davos with Julatka.
And Dr. Mike, Prime Minister Morawiecki received I don't know, is it a prestigious award? What kind of award is it?
Człowiek Roku, or Man of the Year, Person of the Year, depends on how you want to translate it. He was recognized by the Forum as having, the most influence on politics and the economy in this region over this year, which, to some extent is true. He's definitely brought in a more, say, sensible approach to Poland's finances in this time, especially since a lot of the other members of his government are very populist and want to spend a lot of money. He's tried to actually find ways, at least it seems, to, actually have money to spend on this and curb any excesses.
While going along with all the generous programs.
Exactly. So he's kind of like, stuck between a rock and a hard place.
He tries to definitely project the image of the sensible accountant, but there has been massive spending increases under this government.
And he's definitely I remember watching the award ceremony. It was actually presented with this prestigious Man of the Year title, and he actually seemed to be like smiling and a little more positive than he usually is in a public persona. I think it was just because he was around more, say, like-minded people, more people involved with economics and finances than actual politicians. And this might have been his more natural groove and environment. So it was actually kind of a pleasant to see him in that way, no matter what your views are and politically. He seemed to be in his stride there.
Hey, no offense to anybody, but has anybody outside of Poland ever heard of the Krynica Forum?
No.
Is it a thing? No, not really.
Can you read out some of the previous winners? Because it's a who's who of Central and Eastern European politics.
It's basically half of them are just Polish presidents.
If you're not the Lithuanian prime minister, you're the Polish prime minister.
Yeah, it's Orban got it 2 or 3 years ago. Komorowski, I think, got it. Tusk got it. I think Kopacz got it. Because you remember, the Man of the Year, Person of the Year award isn't necessarily for a positive thing. It's for Christ's sakes, Hitler was Man of the Year in Times Magazine, back in the 30s because, he had a lot of influence on the world.
To be fair to time, they do use a certain metric in terms of political influence, and that is consistent with the way they approach Man of the Year, even though it has gone down in history as not the greatest decision of all time.
Just on the subject of Morawiecki, just quickly here, in last week's events commemorating the 80th anniversary of World War II, which we recorded a separate episode about, Morawiecki, in his public remarks in the presence of all these heads of state, made a kind of a vague reference to what we would call reparations, for the damages and the loss of life that Poland suffered during the war. Dr. Mike, is this odd that the head of the government is speaking in a forum like that and goes in that kind of territory?
And by the way, before Mike gives all the facts and details here, I would just say, for me, it was kind of a classic example of Morawiecki, saying something out loud that I really don't think he actually thinks in private is a great idea, chasing the Germans for reparations. And that's why he dances around it kind of, he tries to throw a little meat to the base without kind of specific.
What, you think somebody's pushing him to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think.
I mean, that's exactly meat to the base. I believe that speech or those statements that could be interpreted as saying that he's suggesting reparations were more targeted at the Polish audience or peace voters who want to hear this kind of stuff. Because he didn't straight out say, we need reparations. He was basically saying, Poland was attacked, harassed, suffered. We lost so much. Maybe we should get something back for that. It was kind of in between.
There's the line, though. That's the line that people pick up on. They hold on to it. Like you say, it's not quite asking for reparations, but it's enough where he can say, look, it's politics. Throwing me to the base is a derogatory term for what politics really is, which is you got to connect with the people who actually put you in power. So, I mean, I get it on a sensible political level, but it comes across as insincere to me.
Oh, that's politics. It's all insincere.
Well, this wasn't like some junior minister speaking at some party event in a small town. This is the head of the government speaking at that event. It's a big deal.
Let's just put it this way. It didn't really get any notice until a few days ago, a week after the actual event. People kind of mentioned it as if, they were trying to find some more news to talk about. It didn't explode that day. It wasn't international press. You didn't have TVN here criticizing him that night. It's just something that's, getting repeated now after a week.
It's an easy drum to bash because the Germans never make a big deal over it. What are they going to say?
We're going to bring things to a close with, I still don't know what to think about the story. It's interesting. Last week, Lech Wałęsa, the icon of Polish politics and society.
This is my favorite story.
Lech Wałęsa, he has 37 kids or something like that. I forgot how many. He's got way too many kids.
How many kids does he have? And what's too many?
I have no idea, but he's got 8 kids or something like that.
Is this more of your anti-baby platform we're hearing again?
I'm a baby hater, yeah. We established that last week. I know. But anyway, his daughter got married last week, married to a young man named Lech, just like his father-in-law. And after the wedding, this new Lech, the son-in-law Lech, he chose to take his wife's name, making him Lech Wałęsa.
I mean, this is something that rarely happens in a lot of countries, but let alone Poland. I've only heard this once or twice happen. More likely, I've heard where they just don't take each other's name or don't even combine their names.
Or both people have the hyphenated name.
Exactly, but to actually have the husband take the wife's name is a rarity in Poland, and I'm assuming he did this for obvious reasons, just for
a rarity in lots of places, I think.
But free pass into the VIP lounge whenever he's traveling anywhere.
Like, sir, you look really young, and have you lost like 45 kilograms?
Where's the moustache?
Yeah, how weird is this?
I can't imagine the mustache himself signed off on this. Like, I mean, did somebody run this?
I don't think you have much choice, but like, can you imagine a daughter like she's like
have a feeling
going to bed with a guy with the exact same name as your dad?
It's just, yeah. What do you think?
That is so weird.
What do you think?
We were all thinking it.
What do you think Lech Wałęsa 1 thinks about Lech Wałęsa 2 when he looks at him? When Lech Wałęsa 1 looks at Lech Wałęsa 2, does he think, what the hell are you doing?
Well, can
What's
you
wrong
take
with you?
that kind of name, the second? I mean, it's not the second, really. It's not. You're not
junior, isn't it? Really?
Not junior.
No, you're not junior. It's like you've just taken that name. That's
just
your name.
taking that name. You're both. That makes it even worse in a way.
Well, perhaps it's a long game, isn't it? Because it's not about him, but it's about the putative progeny, which will also be called Lech, and then it will be Lech III, which is kind of that follows the American tradition.
So they'll remember my grandfather.
Yeah, they're not a royal house around, so we shouldn't go too far with this. But there is the point.
Well, I'm not sure that George Hamilton IV in Nashville is a royal house, but I mean.
No, we just meant like not to labour the point. I agree with what you're saying.
No, I want to labour the point.
Isn't it Josh? Isn't it the case that Lech Wałęsa has no seniority in terms of name rank, really, because this pretender has just changed his name. He's no junior Lech Wałęsa. He's not his son.
Well, that's what I mean. But if there's a grandson, then there will be a direct bloodline from. You see, and then he'll be.
You missed your point originally.
Yeah. Hence the third. You know. Yeah. I thought you just wanted. I thought you just wanted to avoid saying third, but I mean,
how unusual is it? I got no stats to back this up, and we're getting off the subject a little bit. But
it was even in times I was trying to think of what I was trying to say, and then I kind of missed the last thing.
Even in the most progressive.
Oh, are you talking now as well?
Oh, I am talking. Sorry to interrupt your interruption yet again.
Podcast are confused.
Even in the most progressive European society, how often does the man take the woman's name? And
it's usually presented more as a joke, just to show how progressive.
Very rare, in my experience. If we're holding up Ireland as one of the most liberal countries in Europe,
here's a thought. How come nobody's questioning her that maybe she got involved with this guy because his name was Lech?
Well, no. It's a very common name. Poland only has about 7 names.
How common is it?
I mean,
is it really that common?
I meet Lechs.
I see a Lech in virtually every bar I go into.
No,
my goodness.
On tap.
No, I don't think. How many of you guys know a Lech personally? A person named Lech?
I know 6 people called Lech.
You know 6 people called.
That's a lot.
I went to school with someone called Lech in England.
Okay, in Poland, as long as you've been here, how many Lechs have you met?
Several.
Really?
Yeah.
You know one right now?
Yeah.
That you can tell me off the air after we finish. You can say, this is my friend Lech, and tell me who it is. Okay, I'm skeptical.
Actually, I've met friends of my dad's with that name. I think it's more common, like the older generation. I think kids born in the 90s.
Yeah, I am the older generation.
I bet you there's a regional kind of thing as well that's maybe more popular up the north, you know?
All right, how many people under the age of like 30 are named Lech in Poland?
Yeah, but we live in Krakow. I'm saying it's a big country. I bet you meet a lot of people under 30 from Gdansk that are called Lech.
I mean, I think I only know one family that their surname is Nowak, and that is the most popular surname in Poland.
Very well said, Michael.
True.
John is wrong as usual.
Sick burn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Well, Lech Wałęsa...
I don't know a single Wisniewski, which is also one of the most
third,
popular.
I think. You've Nowak, Kowalski, and Wisniewski is third.
I do know loads of Kowalskis, actually.
Yeah?
I think
Quizmaster mode.
Okay.
Any more questions for us?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Lech Wałęsa, the new Lech Wałęsa is in the family. We'll see how many kids they have. And maybe, as Josh says, maybe there will be
so anti-baby. It's unbelievable.
Lech.
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We wish their
brand new
progeny
age.
well, is what you mean, John.
Golden
Wish them
Dawn.
very, very well. Well, congratulations to the new Wałęsa family.
Go forward and multiply.
And
this is the John.
Thanks for listening to the news, everybody. And we'll be back with more fascinating bits of this and that in next week's episode.